Action fanatics, welcome to another edition of the Bulletproof Podcast. I'm your host, Chris the Brain. Joining me, as always, is my colleague, Chad Cruz.
Thank you again, Brain. I like to say that I never miss a podcast unless it's super unimportant. So I showed up for this one.
This is an important one. We are
Very
celebrating the 5th anniversary of the Bulletproof Podcast this month.
Oh, wow.
Chad, do you believe it?
Congrats.
We've been doing this for 5 years now.
Wow. Impressive.
That's frightening. Impressive and frightening.
It is. And we've also got the Toyman, Chris DePetrillo, with us.
Back as always. Thank you for having me. And thank you, Mr. Collins, for finally joining us. I know we were trying to put that together for a while. So much appreciated to have you here tonight.
Toyman, you just reminded me of the guy on Iron Chef who's always just happy. I can't think. Hiroki. I don't remember his name. He's the expert, though. And he's always like, oh, happy to be here. But yes, you both mentioned it. He's here, a special guest. You can't have a 5th anniversary show and just have the three of us. We needed to add some star power here. We needed to add the star of the sniper franchise, Chad Michael Collins. Welcome to the Bulletproof Podcast.
Thank you. Big fan of the site and your absolutely hilarious and accurate reviews. I know you've been very kind to our sniper franchise, and I'm honored. 5th year anniversary guest. That's great. I appreciate being able to wear that title belt.
That's right. Yeah, Chad Michael, you are a old school wrestling fan.
Ooh.
80s and 90s WWF, which I spent every single week of my childhood trying to convince my parents was very real.
Oh,
and they never bought it. Sadly, they never bought it. My argument wasn't strong enough.
Yeah,
It's a tough one.
We are in that same boat. I didn't try to convince my parents it was real. I just tried to convince myself that I was possibly the son of Bobby the Brain Heenan, but I'm not. But I do admire the man greatly.
I think your job as a parent is to convince the kid that it's fake. That way they don't hurt themselves jumping off of, any number of high objects as kids.
Well, that's what I've done. But that's why I have Zach writing in his notebook like all the matches that he wants to see instead of acting them out, jumping off his bed and getting injured. So I'll much take that.
He's booking it, huh?
Yeah, he has been trying to come up with all his own matchmaking ideas. It's like, hey, you're 9 going on 30. Keep it up, buddy.
You got to draw the line at the steel cage matches in the backyard. You can't be having that back there.
That is.
We've got a couple of kids in the neighborhood with trampolines. It gets rough sometimes.
Yeah,
So
that's the gateway. That's the gateway.
Sneaking folding tables in there, it's game.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, before we get into the festivities, I hate to bring the mood down.
Oh boy.
But we've had to do this way too much this year on the podcast, but we lost another great one in the form of Tony Todd. And Chad, you just recently worked with him in the bunker. Did you actually get to work with him? Were you?
I didn't have the pleasure of being on set with him. I know he was a part of our cast. We filmed this at the tail end, I believe, of 2020, and so it's finally seen the light of day. Obviously, the pandemic kind of held things up a little bit in terms of getting it out there in distribution, but I understand it's cleaning up on film festivals, horror film festivals in particular. But yeah, Tobin Bell and Tony Todd both made an appearance in that film, and unfortunately, I never got a chance to meet him, but obviously a huge fan of him and his work, and a legend, and gone too soon.
Absolutely. I mean, The Crow is the first thing I thought of. And it's like a reminder that I have not watched that movie in way too long. I probably need to pop that in here soon in honor of Tony Todd. But let's talk. We're here to talk about Sniper. We're here to talk about you getting into the Sniper world. Were you a fan of the original movie?
Very much so. I grew up in a very small town in upstate New York, and mostly had to make do with your big like 3 or 4 networks on TV. I don't think I even had cable TV until I was probably in 7th or 8th grade. But you can believe when that genie was let out of the lamp, I was going absolutely nuts. And TBS and TNT in particular got a lot of airplay, and they loved to air the original Sniper movie, TBS in particular, and it left a really indelible impression on me, especially coming off the 80s where G.I. Joes were my favorite action figures growing up. And so just that opening sequence with Tom Berenger and all gillied up coming out of the brush as he was waiting to exfil in a helicopter was that left a super indelible impression upon me, and was a huge fan of the franchise and that movie in particular, and all the airplay it got on TBS, repeated viewings.
Yeah, you're a G.I. Joe fan too. I mean, you fit right in with this
He
crew.
does.
Like,
He does.
now,
For
let me
sure.
ask you a sidebar question. If you could be in a G.I. Joe movie, what character would you like to play?
Oh boy, that's a good one. I like to be a realist when I'm asked these questions, because every person worth a damn would say Snake Eyes, but I'm Falcon, Duke. I think Beachhead would be fun. Dusty perhaps is somebody I could pull off reasonably, respectably. I have to say those are probably my big 3 or 4. Maybe a Chuckles.
Chuckles. I was going to say
maybe a
Chuckles is
Chuckles.
great.
Give me a Hawaiian shirt.
that was the first thing I thought of was
Yeah.
Chuckles. Maybe it's the hair. You could
Maybe a
pull
little
it
Tommy
off.
Bahama action here.
Oh
and,
yeah,
we
I
can
think
sell
so.
that a little bit.
I like it.
Yeah. So those might be my top 3 or 4 choices if casting was trying to sync me up likeness wise with the G.I. Joe universe.
Yeah, I definitely could see Duke. I could see you getting captured by Cobra, because Duke always gets captured by Cobra.
Yeah, he does. It's true.
But yeah, Chuckles is good, but you'd have to be able to pick up a missile and just launch it with your bare hands. That's what he does.
I don't see that being a problem.
Okay.
That's
I
what
don't know. You
CGI is
keep
for
it. You're
nowadays.
in amazing shape, so I can imagine that could happen. All right, so you were a fan of Sniper. Did you know they made Sniper sequels? Because I'm trying to wonder, did I realize it right away, or was it like they made it? Because didn't he lose his trigger finger? How in the hell is he back sniping? But
yeah.
But they did make 2 and 3. Were you aware of those? Were you a fan of those?
Yeah, I did. I did watch those. I watched those when I got hired back in 2009, 2010 when they rebooted the franchise, and I came aboard as Thomas Beckett's son, Tom Berenger, the actor. I went back and watched 2 and 3. I probably had seen them, as like rentals from a home video store in my small town, but I didn't remember them as much as the first one, because I watched the first one so many times. So I did go back and watch them. Definitely before I got on the plane to go to Johannesburg, South Africa, which is where we filmed Sniper Reloaded. So yeah, I was kind of surprised to learn that there were a couple of more. I know they got the home video treatment, whereas the original Sniper was theatrical and much more widely known.
Right. Another sidebar I'll throw at you. Since did you ever get asked to recreate the Substitute, reboot the Substitute? I mean, you could just be Tom Berenger's son yet again. He could be like the principal of the school. Right. He's like, calls you in like, son, this school's out of control. I need some help here. And you become we could reboot the Substitute as well while we're at it.
I'll tell you what, you're naming some deep cut movies here, and I've seen them. And I remember because it was Berenger, and then what didn't Treat Williams take over?
Treat Williams took over.
Williams,
yeah. No, I remember that. I remember the final showdown in the bathroom where he kicked some ass against the drug dealer kids or whatever. I do vaguely remember
Mark
that
Anthony.
movie.
Mark Anthony of all people was the villain.
Yeah. No kidding. Was it really? Wow.
I still like to think that
Mark Anthony and Ernie Hudson.
Ernie Hudson, wow. You could bring him back, right? We could.
Sure.
That was back when we had high school movies where they just beat the shit out of people, right? And I don't remember there being as many issues in high school back in the 90s.
No,
because every film was a teacher who could kick your ass. And now we have all kinds of trouble.
I mean, it was pretty true to life growing up in the 80s. If for me, I remember getting handled a few times by teachers or principals. I was mostly on my best behavior, and got good grades and kept my nose clean.
It's probably that wrestling.
There was a few fights that were broken up where both kids. No matter who we were scrapping with, me versus whoever, we both got handled by the teacher eventually. So it was a lose-lose all around.
Yeah, they don't make those high school. Yeah, you're right. You're right, Mr. Cruz. I think that's the problem. Kids need to
like
be scared that the teachers
be-
may kick their ass.
They need some frightening up. Yeah. Now you have movies with like Ryan Gosling where he's like a drug addict secretly. So they don't have that fear in them anymore. I think I actually had a history teacher in high school, and we all thought that he was like a serial killer. And he had that vibe, you know, the serial killer aura to him. And I joined the Army in 2003, and in 2005, I'm sitting at a bar on a military base, and I look to my left, and he's sitting right there. Ooh. So he wasn't a serial killer, but
from high school.
He was a trained killer. He wasn't just watching me and waiting to kill me. He was an actual soldier. I'm like, oh shit, you're here, and he didn't even recognize me at first until I brought it up to him. But it was one of those wild, you know, feelings of small world kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Like, how is it possible I ran into this guy? And thank God he didn't kill me.
So. Right. Well, you at least had the killer part right, just the different kind of killer. So
right.
Chad, how did you get into sniper? I kind of found it. I think I remember hearing this on your YouTube channel where you kind of told the story, but share it with us because it's kind of reminiscent of your actual character where Brandon was not meant, he didn't have any intention of being a sniper.
Right.
You certainly didn't seem like you were like, I'm going to be the star of the sniper franchise, but it happened, and you took advantage of it.
We rarely, as beginning actors, get to call our shot in that way. So we're usually the beneficiary of extremely good fortune and circumstances, and hopefully being as prepared as possible when those opportunities, few as they are, come our way. So when I first started acting, I was lucky enough to get a lead role in a movie called Lake Placid 2. And I believe that was like a Sony Universal Sci-Fi Channel creature feature kind of co-production. And the executive producer on that had been mulling rebooting the Sniper franchise after it sat on the shelves for so many years. And after we had done that, he liked what I did, and I played the son of John Schneider, Bo Duke, with Cloris Leachman and stuff like that. It turned out to do very well for Sci-Fi Channel and those Saturday night creature feature movies that they used to crank out, and we did really, really well amongst that genre, I suppose you'd call it. And I remember he called my representation and just kind of pitched the idea, just let him know that that's what they were thinking over there at Sony, and that was one of his properties that he could tap into. I think I might misspoke here, but I think the original concept was Berenger and having flashbacks, kind of an origin story to Berenger's character, Thomas Beckett, in Vietnam, where I would play the younger version of Thomas Beckett in Vietnam. And I think they scrapped that idea, and eventually they came up with Sniper Reloaded, which is basically to have the next generation, so to speak, where I play Thomas Beckett's son. And you're right, in that movie, which I'm sure we'll get into the nitty gritty of Sniper Reloaded as you revisit it. But he starts off as an infantry grunt, and then kind of picks up the way of the sniper, like the old man, as the story unfolds.
So you mentioned it. I mean, it was like 7 years from between Sniper Reloaded and Sniper 3. So it had been sitting for a while. They bring it back. That's interesting. I had not, obviously the Vietnam thing would have been interesting, but you probably wouldn't have had as many sniper movies after that as you did, because that would have been one and done, basically.
No, I'm grateful that it went this way. And it's always it's nice, a little more freeing, I think, as an actor to originate a character rather than trying to, toe that very, very, very narrow line of honoring something that's already been created, but also putting your own individual stamp on it, which is a tricky thing to do. So to be able to originate a character it takes a lot more pressure off and gives you a little bit more creative and freedom and everything too. But I was a young actor. I had all of maybe 3 or 4 projects under my belt, Hallmark movie, Lake Placid 2, and a couple of other things. And to hop in the saddle behind scope, as they say, in Sniper Reloaded was a huge blessing and a huge opportunity. And I kind of started a trend of, first I'm playing John Schneider's son, and next thing I'm playing Tom Berenger's son. So I don't know. I got a face that looks like a sun, I guess. So that was a big boon, at least early in my career.
You have the face. So did you have any background in shooting? Is that something that you had to learn or relearn or unlearn something?
I mean, I grew up in upstate New York in the
Mm-hmm.
countryside, so
Right.
I, my family and generations, hunters, and gosh, it wasn't uncommon in the school that I went to that deer hunting season was a legal excuse to miss
Right.
school.
Right.
It was just kind of the culture in a small kind of rural town of 2,500 in upstate New York, where it was just beautiful nature all around us, and
Mm-hmm.
so I was taught gun safety and gun responsibility at an early young age. That weekend hunter safety training course. I remember my dad taking me and my brother. I was maybe in 6th or 7th grade, but
Mm-hmm.
we had casually had targets in our backyards, and because we had farmers' fields stretching beyond our backyard, just wide open space. So we'd throw crab apples in the creek behind our house and just kind of pew pew at them with a 22 rifle. So I grew up very, very comfortable with rifles, shotguns, everything too. And I think that if you learn the ins and outs and you learn the proper handling and responsibility and safety of them, you're kind of comfortable around those things forevermore. So it wasn't a requirement in terms of me getting the sniper role, but it certainly didn't hurt. That
Right.
not only was I familiar but comfortable, because that's not a guarantee. And I've worked with a lot of actors over the years,
Right.
especially a lot of international actors, where this is just oftentimes not a part of their culture. Has never even held one, let alone fired one or understand anything about them. And that can be a precarious situation for an actor to step into, especially when they're trying to fill the boots of an elite soldier.
I think
So
I think it really comes across on screen, to be honest with you, because I just rewatched Sniper Reloaded. I'd seen it 10 years ago and rewatched it, and there is a comfort. You use the word comfort. There's absolutely the difference between watching an actor who probably hadn't grown up
yeah,
handling a firearm and then someone who had gone out hunting for rabbits, or even if it's a 22, there's still that comfortability that you have compared to someone who hasn't touched one. And you could see it in the film. I mean,
right.
I'm no expert, but I've handled a lot of weapons in my time, and that's
Sure.
always the first thing that I cue in on. I'm like, oh my goodness, how is he flagging every guy on screen with his rifle? So that's one of the cool things that you see in movies. And
Yeah.
You definitely had it. I mean, there's no doubting that it's there. So
Well, I
it's kind of cool
appreciate
to see.
that,
Yeah.
especially coming from someone who knows their way around these things and was professional, in that aspect. And we're blessed to have technical advisors. We're blessed to have even just the guys who are responsible for the firearms and the weapons on set, the armorers. They tend to come from military backgrounds, and I've always approached this with no ego and just picking their brains and just making sure that I represent this as well as I can. And there's always a fine line of like what's going to be technically correct by military standards, and we still got to get the film shot, and it's a movie
Yeah.
after all. So sometimes you got to make a compromise, which people are not
Right.
happy about.
It
But for
has
the
to
most
look
part, you
cool.
want to do that, and because I am comfortable and because I have really learned a lot from so many of the technical advisors that we've been blessed to have over the years, it allows me to help other actors too that might be stepping into these military roles for the first time, or handling things, or even shooting blanks for the first time, because there's a bit of intrepidness about that and anxiety. So I love to share the pointers that I've been able to pick up that make me look good
Right.
with other people and help them get more comfortable with that.
Speaking of
Can I just
anxiety.
point out that
Oh,
we were
yes,
talking
please.
earlier? I just want to point out we were talking earlier, joking about the kids growing up backyard wrestling and injury prone and stuff like that. And here's Chad growing up with firearms experience. We're making sure that the kids aren't jumping off the trampoline the wrong way, and he's casually talking about growing up, shooting stuff in his backyard. I just think that's we've escalated now.
No animals were harmed, just crab apples and targets fashioned like animals. That was it. I didn't actually do a whole lot of animal hunting until in my much later years, and even that was pretty limited. But target shooting was fun. Clay pigeon shooting was really fun, and crab apples. Nobody wants those in your backyard. So we had a green light to fill up buckets and throw them in the creek and pot shot them with our 22 from the top of a hill. So yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it wasn't uncommon in my small town for for there to be rifles and gun racks and people driving through town and everything.
Oh, yeah.
A different way of life, for sure.
I threw shuriken at the jack-o'-lanterns when we no longer needed them. That was about my equivalent
That's
there.
funny.
You could be Snake Eyes.
I couldn't. No,
There you go.
no. But yeah, we were talking about anxiety with the guns. I would have had anxiety just from this opening scene where the spider is I'm like, no, I'm done. I would have been done. Like, what do I have to do? No, all right, you can get somebody else. I'll be sitting in catering or something. But yeah, you can fire me. But yeah, the spider on the face. That
Yeah, that was gosh, was it a spider or like an ant? I can't remember.
It may have been. It was a bug that was crawling and it had multiple legs.
And that was legit. That was a South African actor. I'm blanking on his last name. I believe his first name was Justin. Great guy to work with. He was the heavy and our big bad in that movie. And like shot a scene and they're like, hey, we want this ant to literally run across your eyeball. Are you okay with that? And he's like, sure. And they shot it. I couldn't believe it. It was definitely gave a whole new meaning to suffering for your art. But I don't think he lost an eye. He's not rocking an eye patch these days. So I think he turned out all right.
That's good. But yeah, so it's set in the Congo. As you mentioned, you filmed it in South Africa. The story is you're part of the UN. Well, actually, before we even get into the action, you're deposed because we already know. They already tip us off right at the beginning that some shit went down in the Congo. Mm-hmm. And you're on the hot seat. And then we kind of go back and watch this as you're there as part of, you're training the army there to defend themselves against the rebel forces. But then suddenly, wait a minute, no more training. We've got a special mission for you. You got to go out to this plantation and get this guy who doesn't want to get out of his place. And this is where, in classic action movie fashion, these missions never go smoothly, because if they did, the movie would be over in 15 minutes.
It'd be a short film. Yeah.
Yes.
And that's where but before we even do that, we also have to meet your love interest in the movie.
Oh man.
and your smooth pickup line with her.
Yeah. That was I'll tell you what, Sniper Reloaded was really interesting because I really think that Sony was like, maybe this works, maybe it doesn't, but why don't we give it a go and just see what happens and see how people responded to it. And I just think that, and I was a gun for hire on this and had no creative input or anything like that. But I know in the script, there's kind of a love interest and a dalliance that happens very, very early and without much context and not a lot of setup, certainly no chivalry or romancing, definitely barely even a dinner. But I think that just because it was rated R, they're like, why don't we just go for this? And I don't know that execution wise, it really fit with the kind of story that we're telling. We'll just put it that way. And I do think that despite attempts to possibly have more romances and love interests for Brandon Beckett, I think all those things in the subsequent scripts were kind of axed by the time we rolled around to filming. And then luckily they mostly just left that out of the pages at this point. So
yeah, I was going to say that was a very odd scene for the Sniper franchise, just having this romance going on, because you think back to the original, there was no time unless we had a Brokeback Mountain type thing going on,
right,
with Billy Zane and Tom Berenger. There was no room for romance in the original.
No time for love, Dr. Jones, as
I think that
Go Around said.
Had this film been starred in by Jean-Claude Van Damme, he would have definitely shown his ass in the scene. This would have been his favorite scene to shoot.
Steven Seagal would have required it, I'm sure. But those guys have earned, I suppose, back in the day, stars that they were. Those things.
It does give us a chance to see your cool tattoo, though.
That's true. Yeah. There was a big tattoo establishing Brandon. He had the very I don't know if and when it went out of style, but I remember Old English tattoos, especially with your last name. Your surname was very popular. You'd see that a lot on a lot of tough guys. That was something they wanted to play with. And we all just assumed that he went like Marky Mark, laser surgery, as he made
Yeah.
money serving his country over the years. One tattoo at a time and one layer at a time. So,
Chad,
like
you're
I
a
said,
much
I think they were trying out a lot of ideas just to see what was even going to happen. And I think that everybody was pleasantly surprised that we got traction and everybody really enjoyed the movie. And the rest is history. Now we're on to double digits in the franchise.
Yes.
wow.
Now, have you gained a semblance of creative control as the series has gone on? Like, are they more in tune with your input? Like, do you kind of have more of a say?
You know what? I think like the last few films, um, really there's an openness between the Sony producer and whoever is directing and writing. The collaboration is it's an open door, and it's a really great conversation. I think like on the day, they kind of trust my instincts and what I've learned and how I played this character and added layers to him on certain decisions, certain ways I would handle things, even certain dialogue tweaks and whatever else. So I like to stay in my lane as an actor. I feel like producers are hired to produce, directors are hired to direct, writers are hired to write. I feel like it's my job to do the best I can with that material and service that material to the best of my ability and stay in my own lane. That doesn't mean that we all can't come together in a beautiful meeting of the minds, and everyone we've worked with has been incredibly open to that. But I do try to honor the words on the page and the spirit of things. But I do know that if there is something, or even if something's a little bit off, or even if something maybe doesn't fit with canon or what has come before, that I can certainly, my voice will be heard, and I can give that creative input, and which is cool, which is really fun, and it just shows that they've invested a lot in me and have a lot of trust in me to breathe life and to portray this guy accurately, while adding new wrinkles and layers to him as he goes.
Yeah, that is very similar to the world of professional wrestling. When you get a guy, you get him started, you put him in a storyline. If he produces and he's doing the right thing, then as he goes up the card, you give him a little bit more freedom and he gets a little bit more input in the situation. And then he becomes that character and that character becomes him, and everything kind of, it just gets better. It just keeps getting better and better.
Yeah, and I love that, and being able to collaborate with the other creatives is fantastic. I can offer a lot more input in terms of some of the shooting sequences and obviously some of the stunts and everything else too. So when it comes to the action, which is why people's butts are in the seats for the most part, they trust my instinct and working hand in hand with the stunt coordinators to really tease things out. And so it's fun. I know that there's a lot of trust there, and we have a blast, especially the kind of the current cast of characters and the people in place in Sony that have ushered in their stamp on these movies as well.
Is that why
So yeah.
Grit feels like it's like a G.I. Joe type movie now? You guys are
Mm.
kind of like this little elite squad with the senior officer directing you guys. Like, did your G.I. Joe fandom come into play with that?
Yeah, it kind of feels like that, doesn't it? It feels
Yeah.
like a little elite fighting force. You have to throw back to the original, what, 83 lineup? Pretty small, pretty
Yeah.
contained, limited run on the action figure line. But yeah, it's been a blast. I love, this whole Grit cycle. I think it's a very different wrinkle. We definitely need more into the buddy cop stuff and the humor without sacrificing a lot of the action. And that was kind of the brainchild of Sony and Oliver Thompson, our producer, director, writer, composer, multi hyphenate, who kind of dreamed up this version of things and these characters, which is nice though, because outside of Tom Berenger and Billy Zane, oftentimes it'd just be me and or one of those guys usually coming back, or Dennis Haysbert coming back, and then just kind of a revolving door of cast and comrades and international allies and or enemies. So it's been kind of fun to play with, at least across the last couple of movies, just to have people coming back and to build those relationships and to explore those dynamics and have fun with new and different kind of dialogue and everything else too. I really enjoyed the wrinkle that they kind of put on that.
You
Yeah, I
mentioned
mentioned it when I reviewed Grit. The banter between you and Zero feels very like Bad Boys, buddy cop. To your point, like it's a different twist on the series as opposed to you look at the first one and it was just so serious with like that sense of dread, with Berenger
Mhm.
being captured and everything like that. And then here you guys are all these films later cracking jokes as you're taking people out. So just to see that
Yeah.
evolution, you're like you said, you're getting your action, but it's a nice little twist on it to kind of keep it fresh.
Yeah, it just felt a little more open ended, where people who just love action films in general could kind of come in and have a few yucks and a few laughs while seeing us kick ass, and just some really fun characters and some really fun dialogue, like you said, but also high body count, a lot of action, a lot
Right.
of hand to hand combat. So it was a really fun, kind of more open ended entertainment popcorn type of flick, which I thought was pretty fun to just kind of insert into the franchise. But I do know that people perhaps want to see more of the more sober, the more serious, the more self-righteous kind of thing that's more representative of the military and elite fighting forces and stuff like that. So we'll see the direction that we go in the future. But I kind of love those movies in the way that they took a little bit of a left turn without veering completely off the highway.
Yeah, that new direction, it kind of felt like a classic USA Network show like The Psych and The Burn Notice, but maybe with
Yeah,
like an
yeah.
R rating where you had the
Yeah.
interesting characters and the banter and everything. But yeah, you also got to have some R rated action and people being killed in graphic fashion.
Yes.
Which is, as you said, that's what action fans are here for.
Exactly.
You mentioned Billy Zane. Obviously, he is the kind of the bridge from the original movie to here. Kind of helps pass that torch to you a little bit, put that stamp of approval. Like, okay, this guy's the real deal. Everybody, what was it like working with Billy Zane? I felt like he had some of the best lines in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, and you'd want Billy Zane to have the best lines, right? Just because such a talented, experienced actor knows exactly how to deliver that. And I love the direction that he took Miller, especially after being in the very first Sniper and then coming back in the fourth one, Sniper Reloaded, that I started in. It was fun to kind of see him put his sardonic, sarcastic, kind of like, he's been a military man forever sort of now. And it just kind of has that Butch and Sundance gallows humor type of feel to him while not taking anything too seriously. And I thought that was a really fun, unique stamp that he put on it. But I mean, look, I grew up a fan of Billy Zane's, and when I heard that they were bringing his character back as a young actor with barely anything under my belt, super excited to meet him and to work with him. As this whole thing was kind of new to me, so really, really fun. We had a blast down in South Africa, and obviously he's come back for several other ones too. So it's always a really good time being able to hang out with him and make the on-screen magic with him.
And was there
Was he
any talk?
intimidating at first? Oh, sorry,
I'm
I didn't mean
sorry.
to cut you off there, Brain.
Go
Was
ahead.
he intimidating at first? Like, was his presence like, were you kind of like, here's this guy, like, I mean, obviously there's always like stories about people, you don't want to meet this person, you might not want to meet this person. Like, was he approachable? Did he kind of carry himself, very like laid back?
For sure. And a fun little note about that. So we're about an hour south of Johannesburg. We had filmed most of that movie, as you can see on the screen, in a wildlife reserve. And so we were pretty far out, pretty much dead center, central South Africa. And so they had kind of rented this big sort of manor house, sort of on a kind of a lake. And because they had multiple rooms, and they put most of us cast, in there across like 5 or 6 bedrooms, multiple stories. So we were all in one place, one location for the pickup and the drop offs every day. But we had a little balcony overlooking this lake, and very fancy for me as someone who's barely making ends meet, paying rent in the San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles, California. So it was quite a treat for me to be put up something like that. But I remember the first morning when Billy was there, I'd go out with my, coffee on the balcony and just kind of take in the views outside the balcony overlooking this lake. And I look over to the left, and, Billy Zane's there, and he's got this, half buttoned painter shirt on, shorts. He's got, a paintbrush sticking out of his teeth, and he's got an easel and his oil paintings, and he's like, "Hello, neighbor." It's just, it was a surreal moment. Super cool, very warm, very gregarious, very fun. And if you follow him at all online, very talented artist. He loves to do the abstract painting and stuff like that too. And I remember we had a little fun painting adventure weekend with Billy Zane when we did a film in Bulgaria. I believe it was Ghost Shooter. And so super cool guy. Always love running into him. Always love working with him. But Not at all intimidating. He's as charming as you think he is in person. He is for sure.
Was there any talk or plans of Tom Berenger being in this one, or was he kind of out of the loop at this point?
Honestly, like no idea. I imagine maybe they tried. Maybe there was a scheduling conflict. I really don't know. In terms of the creative stuff, I was just fortunate to get the call, and it was kind of set up in a situation where it was kind of like my job to lose. And luckily, when I tested with the director and the Sony producer who kind of staked me, I didn't screw it up too bad. So I did eventually get on that plane to go to South Africa and originate this character. But in terms of the ins and outs and creatives and what plans they had and how the old scripts look, like I really have no idea. And I don't know the history of that. Obviously, he came back in the movie after that, Sniper Legacy, which is really, really cool. So however that came together, it worked out to have Tom back in the fold.
Yeah. I mean, I think that definitely helps the whole franchise move. Like, again, they're kind of putting the stamp of approval on you. So it's like, as opposed to just you coming in without any of that, you could get some pushback from people who are like, you're not the real sniper. Get the hell off my, I think that definitely helped.
Get off my lawn. Yeah. No, it was cool. It was, just really fun kind of baton tossing moments there, next generation type stuff. And I love the way that they did that, until, Brandon kind of built himself up to stand on his own 2 feet,
right,
and have a lot more ownership of his career and be more of a leader amongst his peers. So I thought it was really cool. I thought every movie we kind of stepped that up a little bit more. Yep. And it's been a nice evolution over a decade plus.
Another moment in this movie that I would have tapped out at was the rope bridge. No rope bridges for me either. I don't drive over bridges if I don't have to, and I sure as hell am not going to walk over a rope bridge. It could be a whole Temple of Doom thing that scarred me at a young age. I don't know.
Sorcerer.
No rope bridges for me either.
Rope bridge. I'll tell you the most precarious moment as we progress through this film for me, but it wasn't the rope bridge. It was I was cool with the rope bridge. It was fine.
You're my feet are tingling thinking of just standing on a rope bridge right now. So I'm going to move on. So yeah, you guys go to get the guy from the plantation. He doesn't want to go. You take him anyway, and that's where the sniper strikes, and that's when all hell breaks loose. And Brandon basically lives partially by dumb luck because you fall in the hole.
Yeah.
You survive because of that. You get picked up by Chandler. You go back. That's where you find the daughter, Kelly, and that's where we get the rope bridge and having to go on foot all the way back to the base. And we get Billy Zane coming to help you out. Not before he does the "you piss your pants and you learn to love it" line. I love it so much. I am doing it right now. That to me is the line of the movie.
It's a standout for sure.
So yeah, there's a conspiracy. Obviously, it's a very layered story because you've got just the whole I want revenge because this guy killed my friends and tried to kill me, almost did kill me. You've got something's going on where the government is helping out both sides and who's behind it. We've got the love story that we talked about that's shoehorned in there.
Yep. Crowbarred.
Very good. Crowbarred indeed.
Yeah, shoehorn sounds too gentle. It was crowbarred in there.
It seems like it was very difficult for you. I'm sure it was awful to film that.
Yeah, I mean, they tried to do it as tastefully and
tastefully, yeah,
as they could, and but unfortunately, it's I feel like in hindsight we could all look back and be like, yeah, probably a little forced and probably a little ill-fitting in hindsight to have this here at that time, because it's like, I don't know, in the first like 20 minutes, 25 minutes. So, but we lived and we learned for sure.
Right. So yeah, I mean, it gets to that point. Once we get past that, then it's all just like, it's revenge time. And that is as classic of an action movie storyline as you need. Is this guy killed my friends, I'm going to kill him. And then to add to it, he was trained by Billy Zane's character Miller. So come on now.
Yeah.
Because it's just perfectly set up.
Right.
Perfect.
Yeah, it feels very much like, this is your origin film. Every action hero needs an origin of some kind, and whether you start later in their career and you go back and do flashbacks and you see an origin or not, but you get your origin here. You're just a grunt, you're an infantryman, you're not a sniper, and all your guys get taken out by another sniper who's highly trained, and guess what? He's trained by your new mentor. Like it really does piece together well, and whether it was written this way or it just kind of came together in some magical way, it, like, looking back on it, I feel like you're 13 movies deep in this now, 40 movies deep in this franchise. Like, it feels like it really worked so well to get you in there for your first film, kind of just starting in this genre and kind of building yourself up as an actor. But this character, like he goes from, grunt infantryman to the end of this film. He's got definite promise and a mentor who's seasoned. So I think it's a perfect origin. And I'm so glad that they didn't make this Thomas Beckett origin story, because I feel like, you may do 3 movies where you're in Vietnam as Thomas Beckett, but now you're unended. You could just keep going for, I'm sure you've already traveled all over the world doing these films, so now you could go forever. So
you could one day pass off to someone else. This franchise could be like the James Bond and just keep going and going and going.
I mean, that'd be ideal, is to hopefully get so old and incapable and infirm that I have to pass the long gun to my protege, my predecessor, possibly my son. Who knows?
I think Annabelle Wright might have been pregnant at the end of this film.
Right. Yeah.
That's the story.
That's the case.
She didn't know. You didn't know for 4 decades that, maybe not 4, 2 decades, that you had a son, and here he is.
If there's a Brandon Jr., her character has not let me know yet. So
good, wonderful.
Now you mentioned the most precarious moment in the film.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you share that with us? I know I don't want to run out of time and not hear this story.
No, it was not falling in the hole. It was not the rope bridge. It was a scene with Chandler. As he kind of goes on and waxes poetic about the beauty of nature and all these things, as kind of an accomplished shooter and hunter in his own right. And so as I go off and learn from him and acquire some of his wisdom, there's a scene where elephants are trampling across the screen, and it's a mother and 2 baby elephants. And so, of course, they paid to have the trainers set the elephants up here off camera and then kind of sprint through camera, hopefully 100 yards that away to a bucket of feed. And so we started off, it was the mother and 2 babies. And by babies, they are the size of smart cars. And so the mother and I think the older baby took off fine. They wanted their chow. But you'll see that in this movie, the one of the youngest elephant just kind of goes like this and kind of beelines right for camera and right for us, because the camera's over me and Chandler's shoulder. And you'll kind of see me do a bit of a rock back just before they cut. I didn't ruin the take, but that elephant probably stopped this far from my face before it sniffed me out and then took off towards the chow. But it was beelining right for me. And I was pretty sure I was going to get absolutely railroaded by this little Volkswagen. So I hung as tight as I could in the pocket, as they say, NFL quarterback, and was prepared to take the hit, but the hit thankfully just never came before the play ended. And that was probably the most precarious moment of that shoot. That could have went very sideways. Man versus beast. I would have lost hard on that one.
You guys,
I guess that's one of the
preserve, right? Is that where you guys filmed? It was on a wildlife preserve.
Yeah, that was probably 85% of our shoot was in and around that wildlife reserve, and just were able to still so many beautiful shots, giraffes, and we had wildebeests and monkeys and all sorts of creatures and critters and all over the place. So there was one particular giraffe that would love to come on set, all curious, and just kind of like absolutely wreck the lighting. And you can kind of stand up. I have a famous picture with Claudio Fay where we're literally posing with the giraffe and just kind of like hand on its shoulder, its leg, and took a picture of it. But yeah, he'd come in there and wreak havoc on the lights. He would absolutely knock a bunch of stuff over before he pissed off.
I did like the Revenge of the Ninja moment where we learned that only a sniper can kill a sniper, much like only a ninja can stop a ninja.
Like Highlander.
Yeah,
That's true too. Yeah. But yeah, so you want revenge, and the big bad, you mentioned him earlier, Justin Stridham, Vincent the Italian Masiello, even though he wasn't really Italian, I think, but they just called him that. But that's the way I guess nicknames often go. They don't have to do anything with, like, am I really that smart? Probably not.
no.
Toyman is the Toyman, although let me tell you, if you want him to be a Toyman who can make you a Michael Dudikoff figure, you're shit out of luck. But that's another story for another time. I try to bring that up though every episode. So yeah, that big action finale, and now it's like, okay, you're fighting alongside Billy Zane, and you got Chandler, and you've got, I mean, it's perfectly built up. That last part of that film is nonstop action, which is what people paid for.
They paid for, yeah. I think we shot that last big action sequence for, that was probably 5 or 6 days of our entire shoot, just banging that whole thing out. So it was a lot of moving pieces, and a lot of fun stuff. It was cool to rock my old man's sidearm. Billy Zane gave me that nice gift, that heirloom, which was kind of a cool, nice touch. So yeah, it was fun, and I think Sniper Reloaded really, it gave us a floor, it gave us a foundation, and I feel like that every movie we tried to just elevate and add some layers on top of it as we went there. And Claudio Fay was our director, and he came back for Sniper Ultimate Kill, which we shot down in Bogota, a few movies after that, which is still hitting #1 on all the Netflix charts all over the world. It's the movie has just got incredible legs, and just does very, very, very well. So yeah, it was a blast to do, and really, 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 really fun to get the first one out of the gates and see it do as well as it did. So that it just launched a whole universe, and I've been allowed to say something cryptic. Exclusively for you guys, if I can work that in here.
Oh, please do.
But please stay tuned for all action audiences and sniper movie fans. We are going to have some news and an announcement for you very soon about the Sniper franchise. And yeah, that's a little cryptic. That's a little, what do they call that? Vague posting?
Yeah.
But yeah, something very, very, very soon. We're going to be able to announce something really fun for Sniper fans. So you heard it here first.
Excellent. And yeah, I would say, I think that's the great thing where you see it's #1 on Netflix here. It's #1 on Netflix. It's like, that has to be like, okay, yeah, we're going to keep on doing this for as long as they're staying #1. It's the great thing, I guess, about today's world. It's like you get pretty much instant feedback. Like, this is a hit.
Yeah. And I think that's the fantastic. That's one of the upsides of the streaming model is that this stuff is trackable. The watch hours, the audience eyeballs, the number of times streamed, like that stuff is real time data, and pretty cool. I know there's lots of pros and cons with the streaming model, but it's been great to see for years that even our older movies, our older Sniper entries, still rocket to #1 when they get released in so many of the territories and countries around the world, just fans worldwide. And we're really fortunate. We released Grit last summer, and with the Sony's second window deal with Netflix, meaning 90 days after Sony's release of a movie, it goes over to Netflix and they get to air it exclusively. So they dumped a bunch of Netflix Sniper movies domestically in the US, which isn't very common. But with this deal in place, they put like 5 of them out on Christmas Day. And, we had 3 in the top 10, topping out at #2 and #3. Wow. And for a whole week, which was really, really cool, including our new one and some of our older ones that hit 2 and 3 and stayed there behind Rebel Moon. a big budget Netflix original. So that was just really cool to see that domestic audiences were just as hungry for these and enjoyed these just as much as all the international traction we get. So hopefully that continues as we try to make them bigger and better for everyone.
I think it's got to feel good, like growing up in the 80s and through the early 90s. When I think of American Ninja, I don't think of David Bradley. I think of Michael Dudikoff. When I think of The Substitute, I think of Tom Berenger.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think of Treat Williams. Now it's become, when you think of the Sniper franchise, you don't think of Tom Berenger anymore because you've taken over so much of it and you've made it your own. So that's got to feel good at this point. I mean, like you said, the success on streaming sites is undeniable at this point, and traveling all around the world, making film after film after film. I mean, that's a pretty good feather to put in your cap there.
Oh man, it's a huge blessing. And I was just talking to another actor. I'm working on a little action film right now to finish the year, which I'm grateful for. But it's so nice to have a calling card, and no one knew what to expect when we rebooted this whole thing, and they took a chance on me, and here we are 13, 14 years later, and I'm still making them and still trying to make them a little bit better each and every single time. And so it's nice, it's nice to for an actor to have a calling card in any sense. I've been fortunate not only with the Sniper movie, but being able to play in the Call of Duty universe recently over the last 5 or 6 years. It's just really nice, to kind of have that. It certainly helps keep the momentum going. It certainly serves me really well in my career. It gives me an opportunity to talk to fantastic journalists and outlets like yours to be able to spread the love and spread the gratitude and spread the thanks for people who support the things that we're lucky to do. So yeah, it's a gift that keeps on giving.
As someone
Is there any correlation from Sniper to Call of Duty? Like, did one affect the other at all?
Not really. What I found interesting, because I got Call of Duty and it was kind of one of these very, very shrouded in mystery video game auditions. I had no idea and didn't know exactly what it was until I was there first day on the set. And then just really super thrilled to find out it was a reboot of the very popular Modern Warfare universe, which I had been a fan of and had played. So that was a dream, and to originate a lead character for that franchise that still lives on was really fantastic. I think there's a lot of similarities between that Alex Keller character in the COD universe, and then of course Brandon Beckett in the Sniper universe. Not exactly the same, but there's crossovers. There's sniping moments. There's all sorts of interesting things. But what I found was, especially when I started streaming Call of Duty live on Twitch, which I'm still very, very average at, mid or trash.
I'm right there with you. I was playing before the pod.
Yeah, I grew up on Contra, dude. So 8-bit side scrollers. So this Call of Duty stuff fries my brains. I can only do 2 hours at a time, but it's a wicked fun game to play, and just fun to play a game that I'm actually a part of. But I found that so many of the Call of Duty players that were a fan of the character that I got to originate went and watched the Sniper movies and really loved them. And I found that so many of the Sniper fans that I had went and picked up Call of Duty for the first time and started to kind of play that too. So it was nice to see that worlds sort of collided across genres. And the characters are probably more alike than not between Alex and Brandon. So it's been pretty fun to kind of see that, and bringing this back around to our original point of discussion about G.I. Joe is just like, this is why I got in the business. I grew up on 80s and 90s action movies. G.I. Joes are my all-time favorite toy, and comic books back then. So to be able to just do this, I'd be incredibly happy to just do, the action stuff, the military stuff for the rest of my career. I would not mind at all being a one-trick pony in that way, because I just really enjoy it. And
do you find yourself using military lingo and terminology in your everyday life? Do you ever catch yourself?
I find myself using the salute emote probably a little too much, and especially the parachute emote. For I'll be there, dropping in, kind of that Call of Duty, like dropping into the war zone type thing. So yeah, it's definitely creeped into my personal vernacular, you could say, a little bit too much, but it's kind of hard not to, copy, Roger that. I say a lot of that stuff, which is just kind of a part of me now, even though, I'm just a pretend version of this on screen.
Well, with the final moments, we have any last things you want to tell us about your experience on Sniper Reloaded?
Yeah, Sniper Reloaded was an absolute blast and a life-changing experience. It was that light bulb film for me, where up to that point I was still working, 10 years into being an assistant for a publicist in Los Angeles, and acting was just kind of a hobby. It's just something I was exploring and doing for fun. And I think that was the moment where the light bulb went off, and I said, "What is it going to take to do this full time? What is it going to take to get serious about this, turn this into a career?" So, I'm doubly grateful for the Sniper Reloaded opportunity, because it kind of gave me the confidence, and it was really the catalyst for me trying to work my butt off with 2 full-time careers to continue to build the acting career to the point where it could hopefully reach a standalone place where I could walk away from an office and really focus on this full time and work for myself. So that was the kind of thing that changed things from a hobby to a serious kind of career pursuit with a 5-year plan. And, knock on this hotel wood, it all worked out, and we're still going. So, just very fortunate that it's gone the way that it has.
Well, we are very fortunate that you joined us here on this episode of the Bulletproof Podcast. Once again, thank you so much helping us celebrate 5 years of this podcast. A podcast that I didn't think it would make 5 episodes, but here we are.
I love it. Like I said, I'm a big fan of you guys. You've always been very kind to our Sniper franchise, which I appreciate. And hopefully we'll get more, and we'll chat more down the road as more come out. So we're not just passing Fast and the Furious at this point. We're looking to lap them, to use a bad word now.
Yes.
So,
thank you.
That's the goal.
All right. Well, thank you so much once again. And of course, everybody, check out bulletproofaction.com. You can check us out on social media at Bulletproof Pod on X and at Bulletproof Action everywhere else. Chad, did you want to share any of your socials or your Twitch or anything?
Sure. Yeah. I stream live on Twitch. Like 2-3 nights a week. Pretty casual. Usually play Call of Duty Warzone with some buddies of mine and some members of the community. Twitch.tv/Chad Michael Collins. Sometimes we'll get a little retro, do a little NES Contra, and some of the games from my childhood and my past, and sometimes some Baldur's Gate 3, the D&D universe, because I'm a nerd for that stuff too. So, but yeah, we have a good time over there. It's a lot of fun. Don't come for the fantastic skills and gameplay. Come for the laughs on the Call of Duty streams, because that's what they're about. But other than that, socials pretty much everywhere. Collins Chad M or Chad Michael Collins, Twitter, X or whatever it's called, Instagram, Facebook, etc., YouTube.
Gotcha. All right. Well, thank you once again, and thank you everyone for listening. And as always, stay tuned for more of the Bulletproof Podcast.